Welcome back to another segment of Live from Forum 2022, powered by NAWB, the National Association of Workforce Boards from Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Ron Painter. With me is Chris Laney, Senior Workforce Strategist for MZ Burning Glass out of Moscow.
Depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Moscow, Boston, UK, Italy. Just depends on who you're talking to at that time.
Yeah, holy cow, Chris. The last time you and I sat down to chat, it was MZ, and it was Burning Glass.
Yeah.
And now it's MZ Burning Glass.
It's been an incredible year. It absolutely has. Seeing two amazing companies come together.
Yeah, and two amazing friends.
Yeah, seeing this all come together. People ask me all the time, they go, what's your favorite thing about this merger? You know, and acquisition and mergers can go in many different ways. And the first thing I said, because I came from the legacy MZ side, I was like, I got incredibly smart colleagues that I just joined our team. 300 of them. And they're absolutely amazing. And so it's been fun to see how our teams have come together, our data's coming together, our products are coming together. It's just been a really fun journey so far.
And Chris, there were products that were similar. Mm-hmm. We'll say that, right?
Yeah.
Now they're the same, but they were similar then.
Yeah. I mean, what we knew was while we both had products and we were tackling the same market, we found a lot of our clients were using both products. They were paying for both, which tells us that they were complementary in some regard. Yes, there was some overlap, but a lot of it was Burning Glass had some really cool stuff. MZ had some really cool stuff. Now they're together, and now everybody has cool stuff.
Now you're totally cool.
Yeah,
you're
right?
Just totally cool.
It's been a goal of my entire life to be cool, and so and now we talk about data, and I'm cool.
Yeah, we're going to talk about data, because Chris, you and I have run across each other in the last 6 months. A lot of conversation. Let's talk about the demographics. You all have done a pretty deep look at the U.S. demographics and in particular the labor force. Talking kind of like the 30-foot level, and then we're going to get down to the ground. But
yeah,
talk about what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at it from a demographic standpoint because everybody's talking about labor force participation.
Yes.
And so why is labor force participation so low? And we started with this idea that it's because of the pandemic. However, when we start to look at the data, this has been going on for decades, 20, 30 years, and then we started to break it down by demographics, trying to understand who's out of the labor force. In our last research study that we did, we released the first demographic drought in, I think, March of 2021, and then last month we released our demographic drought, Bridging the Gap, where we took a little deeper dive into what is happening right now. And what we're finding is that it's no longer an opportunity to get the unemployed employed. It is how do we engage the unengaged, right? People that have historically been on the sidelines, how do we get them into the labor force? Some of them never been in the labor force to some degree. And the demographics we're looking at is across the board, many of which workforce boards have been working with these populations for many years.
Right, because there's a whole segment of the population that got taken on a left turn, that were justice engaged, and that's part of what's out there.
Yeah, we actually have a new study that will be coming out in the next couple months where we're looking at individuals with disabilities, we're looking at individuals that have dealt with the justice system at times, homelessness, single mothers, and we know child care costs has been a significant issue for individuals entering back into the workforce. These are the things, the demographics of individuals we want to look at in a deeper way to understand how do businesses re-engage them, or they've never engaged them.
Are you interested to see, we're doing some work with Upwardly Global, talking about the refugees that are coming in. Are you interested in seeing like where they end up and what are the skill sets? Because we're being told this is a fairly educated set of refugees coming to the U.S.
So we launched a new campaign just recently, and it was the Employ Ukraine. And that has been an MZ Burning Glass initiative that we are working on right now. There is some incredible talent, and we certainly want to help them get to work wherever they're at. The other thing is too, and we talked about this in our Bridging the Gap study, is that we know there are two ways for people to really grow your labor force, and that is either organic, your population based on organic, which is birth rates and whatnot, and two is immigration. Immigration since 2020 has been nil. And we know we're missing a huge segment of our workforce because no one's coming into the country. And so this is an opportunity, like if we can really embrace refugees and bring them in and use those skills, I think it would be a huge advantage to the American workforce.
So one of the things that you all have taught me in looking at the demographic is that a whole lot of the boomers, whoever those people might be, a whole lot
not
of
you though.
no,
That's
not me. A whole lot of the boomers walked out of the labor force,
That's right.
or were basically nudged out of the labor force during the pandemic. However you want to look at that,
Yeah.
age bias and all that stuff. So then, as they're walking out the labor market, who is still there and who's walking in?
So that's the problem, right? So we have a huge generation, a huge population of individuals that walked out of the labor force, and we didn't have the
Smart as all get out.
absolutely
Smart
yeah.
as all get out.
Tons of skills, and they left the labor force, and there's not enough young people to replace them. I mean, that it's just basic math.
But
in that
seriously,
sense.
that is a huge skill.
That's
a
correct.
huge skill set that walked out the door in
That's
larger numbers than we thought.
Yeah, it's not even larger numbers in the instance of, we know that 1.2 million more than we expected walked out in 2020.
Wow.
But the labor force participation among that group went lower than it was in February of 2020. It continuously declined as the economy was coming back up. And so we were looking at this and going, I guess they're not coming back. And we're talking 55 plus, so we're not even talking about full retirement age. We're talking about individuals that have years of experience that could be utilized in the workforce. And so now we're starting to see that track back up the last couple of months as the monthly reports are coming up. We're seeing that go up just a little bit. We think part of that is in a relationship to inflation right now. So we know that, I thought I was going to be able to retire.
I thought I was going to be okay, but
costs
yeah.
are going up a little bit. And so it'll be interesting to see how that tracks over the next 3, 6, 9 months.
Is it true to say, Chris, that the labor force participation rate among that older cohort was higher than it is in the younger age cohorts? Or roughly the same? We're dealing with the same issue.
No, I mean, it's always been a little bit lower in
Okay.
general. You might have something around 70% labor force participation in that 20-year-old demographic. You'll have somewhere around the 40, 45% that would be in the boomer generation to some degree, because you already have those that have already retired.
Right.
But that labor force participation rate just plummeted, and then went up a little bit in the summer of 2021, and then just kept going down. And so it's fascinating to find out why is it going down. You came back to the workforce. Did you not like remote work? I mean, they honestly, because there's a generational differences on remote work, and there could be some other factors. But this idea of I went into the office because I liked being around my colleagues, and now I'm not doing that, and I don't want to be on Zoom every day, right? And so you just make the decision. Maybe I'll just work for myself.
So, for many regions of the country, is it safe to say the labor force you have, as you face the next decade, is the labor force you have?
I think in many parts of the country. I mean, we measure migration data every year, so we're looking at those communities that continuously have new people coming into their communities. The state of Florida and Texas, 2 states that have always been at the top of net migration, and so those states are getting a lot of people to come to those states, and they still have a shortage. But for many communities who are seeing a negative migration percentage, they're going, what are we going to do? We already have a shortage and we're losing people. And so what will those communities do to try to, one, retain their employees and keep them engaged?
Yeah, so it's really gonna, Amy Goldfinger from Senior Vice President for Workforce with Walmart was here earlier, and I talked to her and I said, this HR thing, it's getting a little more complicated.
It is.
Because maybe that boomer doesn't want to come back and work 40 hours a week again.
That's right.
So now we're talking about the same sort of approach that we've taken to maybe the younger generation. What's remote work look like? What does less than 40 look like?
Flexibility within the workplace. We often talk about that. We know that people left for entrepreneurship in record numbers over the last couple of years. So what does entrepreneurship look like within an organization, right? How do you allow somebody to have a flexible schedule that they can help dictate a little bit? I understand that most frontline workers can't work remote, right? So what does a flexible schedule look like? And those are the opportunities that employers have to be able to try to retain the talent or engage new talent to come in to their workplace.
Okay, David Altig, as I mentioned earlier, was here earlier with me today, and I asked him the question, David, what's your favorite number? What's the number that you can't wait to see? Is there a favorite number you have that you just look at and you go, oh, that tells me a lot?
I think you're talking about like in the economy.
Yeah.
I think that labor force participation has been one of those numbers, and more than just the labor force participation number, it really is. If we can break that down by demographics and try to understand who is in and out of the workforce, that's really the number we're looking at. The unemployment number really is not as important anymore, but that labor force, like seeing how that's going up or down, I think it's a really important indicator, at least for the labor economy at this point.
Awesome. Chris Laney, Senior Workforce Strategist for MZ Burning Glass. Chris, always great to see you.
Always good to see you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you. You've been joining us at Live from Forum 2022. I'm your host, Ron Painter. I hope you enjoyed our segment, and I hope you'll come back and listen to more as we bring it to you live from Forum 2022.